Bore da. Really nice to see you all again today. And if you remember our series of 6 lessons for getting on together, last time we were thinking about extremism. So we were looking at definitions about what extremism was and examples of positive and negative extremism. So we're going to move it along today. I'm not going to tell you what today's topic is just yet. I'd just like you to look at the board. And as you can see, there's a question for you. So how old were you when you found out that Goofy was actually a cow and not a dog? So I want you to write down on your piece of paper how old you were when you realised. We're all done? So who would like to give us their answer? Yep, Raz.
I said 12 because I didn't actually know that until now.
Okay, so honest. So literally today is the day you have realised that Goofy was a cow and not a dog. Anybody else out of interest put today or their current age? So that's most of you. So those that didn't, what age did you write down?
8 years old.
8?
Yeah.
So can you remember what happened to make you think that?
I can't remember, but when this came up about Goofy, I just remembered that he was a cow.
Wow, okay. Well, I've got news for you. Goofy is a dog.
Oh.
Not a cow. So can we guess from the start of the lesson what the topic might be today?
Fake news.
Absolutely right. Yeah, okay. So you can see how easy it is, can't you? The objective today is to be able to define what fake news is and also to have some strategies really for helping you to sort out, what information you can trust, sort of things you can ask, resources, places you can go to check for accuracy so that you're not sort of taken in by things that you find out in the media. So what about this image then? This image is obviously, do we know who the person is? The Pope, yeah. So it was used by many to criticise him for contradicting the Catholic Church, for allegedly supporting gay rights and homosexuality, which goes against some of the teachings there. But it was also used by others to praise the Pope for being pro-gay rights. What do we think about that?
Nothing wrong with being homosexual.
Yeah, that is absolutely right, yes.
I think that the people who are saying that the Pope is doing wrong are potentially homophobic because although saying the teachings of the Bible, maybe it might not be exactly the same, but I doubt that they would criticise people for being who they want. So basically he wore the cross that had multiple colours on it, so it looks like a rainbow, and a lot of people took that as meaning that he was celebrating sort of pride and gay rights. But that wasn't why. Okay, so can you see how easy it would be to see information and kind of leap to assumptions without actually necessarily checking? I can see why visually you would think that, because the colours of the rainbow are usually used, aren't they, for pride and celebrating gay rights. But actually in this instance, that wasn't what this story was about. Okay class, so what I'd like you to do now is to get into pairs and just have a little think about and a chat between yourselves about how you might be able to identify fake news.
If it's fake and you believe it, people are going to think of you like weird because you believe in stuff that are not true. You're just trying to fit in.
Check other websites and see what they're saying, because usually most of the time if there's a majority of websites saying different things, check a trusted one. But if they're all saying the same thing, usually the one that's saying different is fake news.
Yeah, you wouldn't just search up a random website called www.newstoday.com and you don't even know it.
Yeah, you don't know it.
Thank you class, well, that was good, lots of chatter, so I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are. Okay, so does one of you in each group want to just share with us maybe 1 or 2 facts that you thought would be helpful?
Sometimes people just they won't tell the lies now, they'll tell it later. So like they say so they can get more viewers.
If it's not like reliable, then you've got no proof that it did happen. So
Okay, so great point. How would you be able to tell? How would you judge whether it was a reliable source or not?
So say like I don't know when it happened, but like the government of Wales, they did like this poster of like the World War II, like with a monster with a German hat over the world with blood dripping from it, like it's trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
And then like you can't really believe that, can you? Because they were trying to get more people to join the war so they would win. Yeah.
Okay, so it's thinking behind, isn't it? That's a really good point about thinking about the reasons why somebody is putting that message out there.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to spot fake news because like for like the goofy one, right, if you like say it's on like a website that you've never really heard of, it's more than likely not going to be true, because ideally what you want to do is look at the official website where this character or anything was created, and then if they haven't said anything, then it's not going to be true. And then with the Pope one, it's like the cross wasn't even in order of the colours.
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of obvious that it could have possibly not been true. So like check the official websites and check these like people who are generally concerned, and they'll probably have their answer.
Fantastic. That's a really good tip, isn't it? So go to like the official websites and see whether what you're reading or hearing or seeing ties up with the official sources.
If you see something on a website,
but
you're not like you're skeptical about it, you can always check other websites to see if people are saying the same thing.
Okay.
And to be extra sure, most browsers, like website browsers, have a little lock in the top left of the website to check if the website's secured or not.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's a really good top tip.
If it didn't have like or the author and who like wrote the article, you wouldn't know, because they don't want to post their name because so that it can't trace them back.
What about the why? Why is this important? Why do you think we're telling you that you need to be able to identify what's fake and what's real? Yes.
It could say that there's a war breaking out, so you might start panicking, and you might end up overspending too much, and then you realise there's no war at all.
Yeah.
So when you look at your bank account, it's going to be empty.
Yeah.
So then you won't be able to buy any stuff. So you'd have to you'd be homeless.
They come out on social media saying if you try fire and chemicals, then but it's dangerous because sometimes kids can try it and it's not okay.
Yeah. That's true. There's been a real rise in that, hasn't there, over recent years? Yeah, absolutely. Trends starting on social media, where actually what they're promoting, because they're spending so much time and effort on social media, is promoting things that are actually dangerous and harmful. So how would you know? What could you do? Say you're sitting there and you're scrolling through your social media field, you look at it on Instagram or whatever, Snapchat, what sort of things would make your alarm bells go?
Well, like if I see someone doing something that looks fake, I could like check back at what they've done before to see if anything else was obviously faked.
People use the big platforms and their power to like cause worry, and it's like ridiculous because then it causes people to, generally panic and worry, and they know that nothing's going to happen.
What else do you need to keep yourself safe from? I'm thinking particularly now of things like the internet and social media. Yes.
People pretend to be people they're not.
Absolutely. And why would that be dangerous?
Because you think you're talking to someone you know and you're not.
Yeah.
Happened to me once.
It's happened to you once.
I was talking to someone that came here.
Yeah.
But then I found out, like, they told me, oh, I don't go to that whatever school.
Yeah.
Because they said the school name first, because I won't put my school out on social media.
Good. Well done.
But then they said, oh, I'm in the US, haha, I tricked you. And then I blocked them and then I reported them, and then their account got banned.
Okay.
And like you could think you're talking to like someone your age, then really it's like an old man or something.
Yeah. It's not a nice thing to happen, and I've never done one of these classes and not had somebody say it's either happened to them or, somebody they know, a friend, a family member. It does happen. And actually, it's not just children and young people that are taken in. Maybe people on dating sites who perhaps get, taken in and then, they part with money, don't they? Or, just random emails that come to you, phone calls, the number of mobiles that are making scam calls at the moment is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't answer my mobile phone unless I recognise the number, because I figure if they're somebody legitimate, they're going to leave a message and I'll be able to get back to them. And if they're not prepared to do that, that raises an alarm bell for me.
And you can get those emails where it says like you've won an iPhone for £1, all you need to do is put your credit card details in, and then like it'll take all the money from your card.
What sort of things could you do to protect yourself from that? So say you'd received that email, what would you do?
You can like block the email person.
Yeah.
It's like you don't get those emails anymore.
Yeah. I mean, something I do is I wouldn't open the email. I would just hover over the sender email address, and that comes up. And if it's not an official, company name that you recognise, I would know that it wasn't a recognised official email address, and therefore it was spam.
If those stuff happen to you, always tell someone, or report, or just watch out.
You have got to keep yourself safe, and I think unless you physically know the person in real life, if it's not a family member, a friend from school, a friend outside school, or another really trusted source, it's like, if in doubt, just don't share, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Don't share any bank details, don't share any photographs, don't share your surname or even your whole real name, don't share where you live, don't share what school you go to. There are all these little practical things that we can do. Okay, class, so we're just going to watch a short film. So I want you to pay attention to this. I'd like you to jot down sort of 3 aspects about fake news you're picking up from this film, and then we'll feed back afterwards, okay?
Hey gang, you'll never guess what I heard in the news today.
What did you hear?
Well, apparently...
Like many young people of today, Billy likes to impress his friends with his knowledge of world affairs.
Oh, I'm so impressed by your knowledge of world affairs.
But young Billy is about to make a big mistake. You see, this morning, as always, Billy cast an eye over his social media feed, looking for the niftiest news.
Golly! This story's out of sight!
Look out, Billy. That interesting story might just be a fake.
Look at this.
What is that?
People create fake news for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it's to make you laugh. Other times it's to influence your opinion, or to make money by attracting your clique. Or sometimes they're just jerks. But repeating that fake news can make you look pretty silly.
Did you guys know that aliens from outer space built the pyramids? Really? Isn't that neat? Yeah.
Your friends could spread that fake news even further.
Hey guys, did you hear that the pyramids were actually built by aliens? You might have noticed fake news is having a bit of a moment.
CNN and MSNBC are fake news. Fake news. In Washington.
There's been a lot of talk about how made-up news stories can end up influencing the real world. And many agree that's a real problem. But did you know it's not a new one?
What does it say? The aliens built the pyramids.
For about as long as people have been communicating,
Well, there you go.
we've been using our tools of communication to tell great big whoppers. We can see evidence dating back thousands of years of leaders, artists and historians bending the truth to make themselves or their bosses look good, or to tell a better story.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your news here.
Eventually, the printing press came along, making it much easier to spread phony information.
Creatures found on the moon.
Paper, sir. You see, many newspaper owners realised they could sell more copies if the news was exciting, even if it wasn't exactly true.
Oh, thanks, sir.
One famous example of this was the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. The New York Sun published a whole series of articles about creatures that had been found on the moon. Of course, it wasn't real, but it did drive up circulation. Then there was propaganda. During the First and Second World Wars, governments on both sides would exaggerate or downright make things up to make their enemies look bad.
One world. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mercury Theatre. Broadcast Orson Welles. We know now that in the early years...
Of course, not all fake news was made to fool people.
The world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man.
Some was made to entertain. Like in 1938, there was a very famous radio broadcast. Orson Welles read an adaptation of the novel War of the Worlds live on air, presented as a fictional news bulletin. Afterwards, there were reports it had caused mass panic, with many listeners thinking aliens really were attacking.
Aliens are attacking!
The earth about their little affairs.
But even that fact was later found to be fake news. Most people knew it was just a story. Besides a group of people in a small US town who attacked a water tower because they thought it was an alien. Still, it's thought the panic story was grossly exaggerated by newspapers to discredit their new competitor, radio.
And welcome to television.
President Kennedy has been shot.
As the 20th century went on and TV joined the mix, journalism ethics evolved.
Nothing will save the Governor General.
Many governments created organisations to promote standards in journalism. And many media organisations built their reputations on telling the truth. That doesn't mean fake news went away, but it was often easier to spot. For instance, if you wanted to read stories about UFOs and Bigfoot, then you'd probably find them in a tabloid, like this. But if you wanted more accurate news, well, then you could try a more reputable broadsheet.
Oh my goodness! There's a sale on at Grace Brothers!
But then came the internet, and things got a little more complicated. All of a sudden, anyone could be a publisher. And with so much information out there, it could be hard to know what to believe.
I don't know who to believe anymore.
The internet, with its blogs, message boards and chat rooms, created the golden age of conspiracy theories, as people seriously speculated about celebrity lizard people, the Illuminati, and who really killed JFK.
Next, please.
Social media has kinda made things worse by letting us share stories without making it clear where they came from or if the source is reliable. Plus, we're more likely to see stories we already agree with, and we're more likely to believe them when they're shared by our trusted friends.
Wow.
That's a really serious problem.
Next, please.
Especially when it comes to political stories, which can influence the way people vote. There's been a fair bit of speculation about whether or not fake news could have affected the outcome of the 2016 US election. There were heaps of fake news stories doing the rounds during the campaign. In fact, near the end, it's thought fake news was being shared even more than real news. So what about the future? Well, there's a real worry new technology will make the problem of fake news even worse. Imagine watching an interview or a speech and not knowing if you're seeing a real person or a super accurate animation. Yup, this technology is already being developed, which gives us even more reason to stay aware of fake news in all its sneaky disguises.
Gee willikers, this fake news stuff is completely bogus.
Don't worry, Billy. Here are some handy hints to help you spot fake news. Ask yourself, does the story seem a bit suspicious? Is it too good, too bad, or too crazy to be true? Then maybe it is. Don't just read the headline. They're often designed to suck you in, and sometimes they can be misleading. So read on. Dig a bit deeper. Find out where the story came from. Who's the author? Who are the sources? What website does it come from? Does it look professional and unbiased? Ask yourself who might benefit from the story, or who might end up looking bad. Is it actually news? Think about why the story was written. Could it be satirical, an opinion piece, or an ad in disguise? And if you're still not sure, try doing that thing you young people like to do these days.
Google it.
Yes. Use your preferred internet search engine to see if you can find some more legitimate information. There are even some sites out there that specialize in debunking fake news. So kids, armed with these useful tips, hopefully you'll be able to tell the real deal from the nasty fakes next time.
What a deal I was.
Yes, you were, Billy.
Oh, my name's actually Sam.
Oh, Billy.
Okay, so you've seen the film. You were going to pick out some aspects about fake news that perhaps we hadn't covered earlier in the lessons.
Even something that you think is a reliable source could be lying and making something more believable, or like lying to make it more interesting.
Lots of people can exaggerate and stretch out the stories for what they think is right.
Yeah.
You can't negatively stereotype someone.
Brilliant.
And you have to remember that they make up things to make the story more interesting and maybe slightly twist it and just change the truth.
Yes. Journalists can be biased and not do as much research to get the full story, so they only have half the story.
That's right. So what would they need to do, or what would you need to see in a feature or an article?
Well, they should go to where it happens, get nearly the full story.
Okay.
It's you're not being lied to, because if a different story comes out of that and it's not the same, then you've known that you've been lied to.
Okay, great work, thank you. So what I want you to do now is on your desks, just so you know, you've got a handout which is a checklist, which you've covered a lot of things already, but keep this with you. I'll give you a folder at the end of the session. You can keep everything together. But this is just a fake news checklist. So, if ever you're really not sure or you just want to refer to it in future, then you've got that, okay? We're going to turn ourselves into a newsroom, okay? So I want you to come up with a headline for a story. Now, you can choose a story that's fake or real, or even a combination of. And your job is to fool us, okay? So you're going to have 10 minutes to think about this in your teams. So I need a headline, then the content of the story. I want you to think what you're going to put as your source, whether that's a website or a newspaper or a media channel or a social media channel, okay? So try and make it credible, whether you're going for fake news or real news. Then we'll present back, and then the rest of us will have to decide whether what you've presented is fake or real. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, off you go.
It's very close to real, but it's fake.
Just forget
it's
it's believable.
Yeah, because there's a truth behind it. but it is fake. There was a footballer called Christian Eriksen, quite famous. He collapsed on the field and he had a heart attack.
Denmark against Finland,
and that's true, but we could say that perhaps he died in the hospital bed.
Or you could have retired. Or you could have retired from football completely.
Yeah,
so have to think about whether you're going to do a real one or a fake one, and if you're doing it as a real one, throw in some things that might make us think it's fake, and if you're going to do a fake one, try and trick us into believing it's real.
Okay, David has been dropping hints for a long time.
Yeah, like we could say how he was like crushing on Simon or something.
We're doing it based off the Euros because the Euros is like popular right now, and loads of people are interested in it.
Right, so we wrote Christian Eriksen goes into cardiac arrest on the football pitch during. That's all we got so far.
Okay, Cass, well that was some good noise. I hope you've got some fantastic stories for us from our newsroom. I'm excited about hearing this. All right, so who would like to go first?
Charli D'Amelio got over 155 million followers on TikTok, and she got over 6,000 videos, and she's the most famous TikToker.
All right, so hands up who thinks that that is fake news. Okay, so tell me why you think that's fake news.
I don't know why, but it don't really feel like it's real.
I think 155 million followers is coming up, but it's not yet.
Okay, so you think it's just that little bit too good to be true?
If she's that famous, she would have been on my For You page at least once, but I haven't seen her at all.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So elements within it that are credible, but the overall consensus of the group is that it's that little bit too good to be true. Put us out of our misery, Abby.
It's real.
It's real.
Oh,
fantastic! You tricked us.
She's not on the For You page a lot because I think she's shadow banned.
Well done, Abby. Who would like to go next?
Eriksen dies on hospital bed. Christian Eriksen goes into cardiac arrest on the football pitch during Finland vs Denmark match. Despite all of the doctor's efforts, Eriksen died in the hospital bed later that day. His family and football teammates are still processing the awful loss.
Who thinks that that is fake news? Okay, so tell us why. Why are you not convinced?
I just don't really think so. I don't know why, I just don't settle properly.
Okay, well what sources of information could you go to help you make your mind up?
Pretty sure I heard like Sky Sports say that he's okay.
Okay, so you've got a bell going that, oh, you know something happened, but actually you think you've since heard something else. Yeah. Okay, so in your case, what would you do to resolve the matter?
If his family's made any like recent posts or something.
Okay, so have a look on social media for friends and family posting. Again, we could go to like the football media, couldn't we? The sporting media. All right, so I think we know the answer to this one, but tell us true or false. Yeah. Fake news.
To be fair, it was technically true because during cardiac arrest he did technically die.
He did.
But obviously the doctors brought him back.
Okay, so who's got a story that we haven't heard yet?
A new virus in the UK. Many citizens have caught the new bird flu virus. It was said to be unlikely to spread, but that seems not to be the case. Over 200 people have caught it in the past week, killing faster than the coronavirus.
Oh, goodness me. So did we all hear that? We've got a new bird flu virus that's spreading faster than coronavirus. Is that news you'd want to hear right now? No. No, me neither. Okay, so let's do a vote. 1 second, Abby. Who thinks that's fake?
I think it would be like another outbreak, even though like we're still in like COVID, so they wouldn't like bring out one, even though we're nearly at the end of the one we just had.
It does exist, but I don't think it's like we don't have to worry it for now.
Yeah. So there are elements within it then that are true.
I think there would have been more news about that flu than the coronavirus if it was worse than that coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. So you would sort of maybe check out some of the news channels and things like that. Yeah. You know, you've got all the mainstream news channels. You've got the, looking to see whether it's an official registered, website. You can look at newspapers. You can go to experts in the field. So like we were talking about the football media, weren't we, when you were talking about things happening in the Euros. So, there are there's general sources, and then there's also specialist sources according to what it is you're trying to find out. So I think you've you've given that a good thought, and thank you for doing that exercise. That's brilliant. Talked about keeping ourselves safe, but one of the particular things that I want to talk about now is how this relates to extremism. Okay, so why or how do you think that people could use the media for those kind of negative purposes? If somebody was an extremist, how might they use the media to try and kind of trick you or fool you into joining them?
You could use World War II as an example, because I'm pretty sure the Germans, they used like a kind of scapegoat, and they used to put loads of posters up and essentially portraying Jews to be to say that they're causing all the problems in Germany, and that's why they're in debt and stuff. Yeah. Which is ultimately the reason why World War II started.
Absolutely. And it's a big word. Some of you might know it. Propaganda.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, I thought you might know. So can any of you give me any examples, maybe thinking about, obviously not mentioning any names or sort of personal details, but any examples within perhaps your family or within school, friendship groups, where, people could perhaps feel persecuted or, picked on?
If, say, one of your family members got bullied, because of maybe someone stereotyping them, or portraying them to be a terrorist or something like that because of their skin. Absolutely. So, skin colour, being one, and there are lots of different characteristics, aren't there, where, people can feel a bit marginalised, a bit, sort of not completely part of society and discriminated against. And, maybe you're aware of this, but, a lot of people who are extremist will use that. They want to kind of incite, they want to make people feel picked on, marginalised, not valued or respected as much by society. It's actually a tactic that they use to try and get more people on their side. Does that make sense? What about if you feel as a group of people, so just imagine there's a group within your local community who doesn't feel a valued part of the community, say, or they don't feel that they've got the same sort of rights and respect as other people. Can you think of any examples of that?
If everyone was the same, life would just be boring, because there would be no surprise when you see new people. You'd just be like, oh, because they would be the same, look the same, and that. Absolutely right.
So it's not about tolerating diversity, is it? It's more than that. It's bigger than that, isn't it? It's about celebrating. Yeah, absolutely right, Jazz. Encouraging and celebrating. Yeah. So what sort of things could we do if we felt that wasn't happening in our communities?
Not necessarily speak up or speak out over the person that obviously is feeling targeted, but help them to realise that whatever they are isn't wrong, and people who see that are just uneducated, and it's not very fair on that person who feels targeted. Yeah. It's not that hard just to respect someone.
Absolutely right. For me, it's about actually learning. I like learning about new people, new things, understanding, so different cultures, religions, beliefs, personalities, different ages. What would you do if you saw it happening in a negative way, perhaps? If you noticed there were elements within your community who were being perhaps intolerant or unkind, or you were, what if you became aware of some sort of potentially extremist behaviour or views? If you were to hear them, what would you do?
Generally sitting down and speaking to them and being like, you know, educate yourself on like these issues and these topics and all that. And then like more than likely they'll listen to you because you're not screaming and shouting, you're generally just trying to help.
Like if you see like a group of people being mean to like one or two people, like, and it gets a bit too violent and you're on your own, like going for a walk or going to your friend's house, instead of just walking past like nervous, instead of, if it gets too violent, then you probably have to phone the police. But if you have to, for proof, make sure you like FaceTime your best friend or record it or something, so then you've got evidence of what happened, so the other people can't say, oh, this didn't happen, they're making lies up, they just don't like me and that.
Those people that be mean to you, or like, they just want to show off and they just want to take all these words and say it to people just to show off and say, oh my gosh, they're brave, they can say bad words to those people.
It's often based in fear, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure, you know, you found that. I know we're sort of focusing on extremism now, but it is fairly similar to things like bullying, which is, I think, you know, the experience that you're drawing on. You know, which is often the person who is the bully is a person who's got a lot of fear and a lot of issues. And that's a really good point with regards to extremism as well, because, and it'd be really interesting to see what you think about this, but the extremists, we've said, haven't we, they're very clever. They're all about trying to like recruit more people to their cause. You know, that's the kind of language, isn't it, that they would use. Yeah? And now what they tend to do is they tend to actually specifically target people who they consider to be vulnerable. They will look for any vulnerabilities, and unfortunately children and young people are one of those categories, and anyone who's having sort of any troubles or issues, for whatever reason, is obviously more vulnerable. The other thing to consider is that they kind of believe that the ends justify the means. So for instance, you know, an extremist would be prepared, potentially, to be a terrorist. You know, they will literally die for their beliefs. Generally, they are so, you know, passionate and, you know, so tied up, you know, with the belief of their cause that unfortunately they lose that, you know, that logic. All the things that you've demonstrated today in class for me, you know, you've been through logical processes, you've been questioning, you've been curious, you've listened, you're respectful of each other. You know, all those things you often don't get as behaviours. So those are other alarm bells just to be aware of. If you know, if you come across that, so just be mindful of that. Okay, class, so we talked earlier about fake news, kind of, you know, what it is, how we might spot it, how we might go about verifying whether something is fake news or whether it's real, and you had some really good ideas and thoughts around that, so hold on to those. We also then went on to look at how that links into extremism and how unfortunately there are some people out there who, you know, will look to manipulate what's in the media for their own causes. So it's just being really sort of hyper vigilant really, and just making sure that you know the sources that you've got the checklist for fake news that you've taken away with you. So if ever something's not quite ringing true, or you're feeling there's an undercurrent of perhaps somebody trying to lead how you're feeling or thinking about something, then there's a reason for that alarm bell, and that would be when to refer back to your checklist.